We now come to Andy Burnham, member for Makerfield.
Within hours of Keir Starmer's announcement,
I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Andy Burnham, the former mayor of Greater Manchester, Britain's second most populated urban area outside Greater London, was being sworn into Parliament.
Rome is saved.
He just won a by-election in Makerfield, a constituency in the northwest of the country that's only ever had a Labour MP.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles.
Mr Burnham needed lawmaker status to launch his bid to become Prime Minister. He's run twice before, in 2010 following Gordon Brown's resignation, a race in which he came fourth out of 5 candidates, losing to Ed Miliband, and again in 2015 when he finished second behind Jeremy Corbyn.
Turn the water into white.
If the so-called King of the North,
The King of the North!
a nickname obtained after Mr Burnham pushed back against Boris Johnson's COVID-19 lockdown measures, makes it third time lucky, he'd be the UK's 5th Prime Minister in just 4 years. Andy Burnham is a career politician. He worked as a minister in both Tony Blair and Gordon Brown's centre-left New Labour governments. He then served in the shadow cabinets of both Ed Miliband and Jeremy Corbyn, who moved the party further to the left, before he was selected as Labour's candidate for Mayor of Greater Manchester. Mr Burnham won re-election twice in that role before throwing his hat in the ring for the Makerfield by-election.
It was growing up in and around these streets that I saw what Thatcher's government did to places like this, the deindustrialisation, the draining away of economic, social and political power.
Andy Burnham became Mayor of Greater Manchester in 2017, a role for which he led the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, which is formed of 10 local authorities and controls a budget of around £3 billion.
What all of these experiences have taught me is that Westminster doesn't work for people in this part of the world and communities like this across the UK.
The 2014 devolution agreement with government gave the mayor additional powers over areas including adult education, housing and planning, and transport.
Manchesterism is the end of neoliberalism, the end of trickle-down economics that has left out places like Makerfield. Make no mistake, that means a new path for Britain.
How Mr Burnham will bring what he's learned over the past 10 years at a regional level to the national stage is hard to say. Since he was last in office, Britain has left the European Union, gone through the COVID-19 pandemic, and supported the ongoing war in Ukraine. All this set against a weak economy, a stubborn inflation, and what many perceive to be an immigration crisis. As historian and author Anthony Selden writes in The Times, his Manchester entourage, who have followed him down to London, should be given a ticket back to the capital of the North. Prime Ministers fail when they imagine they're still doing their last job. Boris Johnson tried to run the country as if it was London, and Starmer came in thinking like a leader of the opposition. But speaking to Times Radio, Prime Minister David Cameron's former Treasury Minister seemed confident that a Burnham Prime Minister would deliver constitutional devolution.
It would ultimately involve including devolution of some taxes, but a lot more responsibility, getting rid of some parts of government departments, maybe more than just a bit of some departments, to give proper responsibility to people locally, but at the same time potentially helping start to reverse this very troubling rise in the welfare bill.
Another issue worth considering is where Andy Burnham is on Europe. 10 years ago, the UK voted for Brexit, with those most in favour of Britain's departure from the European Union in the North and the Midlands, the Labour heartlands. The seat Mr Burnham represents, Makerfield, voted 65% in favour of leaving. But while Mr Burnham actively campaigned and voted for Remain, 2 years later, during negotiations, he was one of those saying he'd back a second referendum, and as recently as last year said he'd like to see the UK rejoin the EU at some point in his lifetime.
Mr Burnham, are you preparing for a contest or a coronation?
Thank you, everyone.
Currently, Reform UK are leading the polls, a party led by Nigel Farage, who's calling for a general election.
Let's get a government with a clear democratic mandate.
Meanwhile, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, speaking in Prime Minister's Questions, targeted Ed Miliband, rumoured to be one of Andy Burnham's picks for the job of Chancellor of the Exchequer, should he become Prime Minister.
He was a failed Labour leader, rejected by the electorate, brought back from the wilderness by this man, and when the going got tough, he jumped into bed with the Mayor of Manchester. Yeah, it's not the first time he's betrayed someone close to him, is it?
Given his baggage, it's hard to see why Andy Burnham thinks he'd be the right man for the top job.
New home.
Well, it wasn't surreal before because I was still in the sort of afterglow of the GMCA departure, but this definitely feels surreal now, coming back in a good way.
Ding dong.